Trust me. The
You
left
forget I
hook.
only need one too.
Okay.
You forget that too.
That's fine. All right, then we both got it. We both got it.
Like, come on, bro.
I can't.
When it comes to high-stakes drama, boxing never fails to deliver, and the live press conference between Gervonta "Tank" Davis and Lamont Roach was no different. Fans had anticipated the usual tension, a few heated words, and a face-off to hype the fight, but what transpired was pure chaos. Lamont Roach didn't just talk the talk, he walked it, shoving Tank in front of a packed crowd, triggering an all-out brawl that had security scrambling to restore order. This moment changes everything, and it's important to break down what went down and why it matters for the upcoming fight. The rivalry between Gervonta Davis and Lamont Roach had been simmering for weeks leading up to this dramatic press conference, but nobody expected things to explode like they did. With fight night approaching, both men were on edge. Tank, the undefeated knockout artist, came into the press conference with his usual confidence, knowing that he possessed the power to end Roach's night with a single punch. He was laser-focused, as always, on making sure his hands were right for the fight. For Tank, it was all about preparing his body and mind to ensure he remained on top. Roach, on the other hand, was not intimidated. He had been building momentum and gaining respect as a serious contender. He wasn't just here to collect a paycheck, he was here to prove something. He wanted to take everything from Tank. Roach made this clear during the press conference when he told the crowd that Tank had taken the fight because he knew Roach was a serious competitor. Roach was ready to prove that he could not only stand toe-to-toe with Tank, but that he would come out victorious in what was sure to be a thrilling battle. The face-off between the two fighters had been set. They stood inches apart, each man locking eyes with the other in a silent battle of wills. Tank remained calm, cool, and collected, smirking as he faced Roach. But Roach wasn't about to let this be a typical stare down. Without warning, Roach shoved Tank with both hands, sending the champion stumbling backward. In that instant, chaos ensued. Tank, never one to back down from a challenge, lunged forward, fists flying. Roach stood his ground, refusing to back down from the chaos he had just created. Security had to rush in to separate the two fighters. So why did Roach push Tank? Was it an emotional reaction, or was it a calculated move? Some believe that Roach was simply trying to get into Tank's head. Tank thrives on being the aggressor in a fight, but this time Roach flipped the script. By putting his hands on Tank first, Roach forced Tank into an emotional reaction. The move made the undefeated champion look rattled in front of the entire world, and that was significant. For years, Tank had been known for his ice-cold composure. Whether it was during trash talk, face-offs, or even fight night, Tank had always been able to keep his emotions in check. But this time, Roach's actions seemed to get under Tank's skin. Tank's reaction to the shove was immediate and intense. His emotions got the best of him, and he charged forward, swinging at Roach. Security had to physically restrain Tank, who was visibly angry. It was a side of Tank that fans weren't used to seeing. Tank's anger was palpable as he warned everyone that Roach would pay for what had just happened. He didn't take kindly to the shove and made it clear that there would be consequences. For Tank, this wasn't just about the fight, it was about respect. The shove had crossed the line, and Tank was determined to make Roach pay for it. It was clear that Tank was ready for a fight, both physically and emotionally. The press conference had gone from a simple promotional event to a full-blown spectacle. Before this moment, most fans and analysts had written off Lamont Roach as just another opponent for Tank to dominate. Tank was an undefeated knockout artist with a reputation for ending fights quickly and decisively. Roach, despite being a talented fighter, was not considered a serious threat to Tank's dominance in the sport. But after the press conference, things began to change. Roach had stood up to Tank in a way that nobody had expected. He looked fearless in the face of one of boxing's most dangerous punchers, and confidence like that cannot be ignored. Roach's actions and words in the aftermath of the altercation demonstrated his belief in himself and his abilities. He wasn't just a boxer, he was a competitor who believed that he could defeat Tank. He was going to prove that he was the better fighter. For Tank, this was a challenge like no other. Roach wasn't backing down, and this fight was no longer just another date on the calendar, it had become personal. Adding another layer of intrigue to the situation was the involvement of Floyd Mayweather, Tank's former mentor and promoter. Their relationship had been as complicated as it gets. At one point, Floyd had helped Tank rise through the ranks of boxing, but their relationship had fallen apart over the years. Now, Floyd's presence in Roach's corner was fueling speculation about mind games and whether Roach's actions at the press conference had been influenced by Floyd's tactics. Could Floyd have whispered in Roach's ear, encouraging him to get inside Tank's head? It was a question that left many fans wondering if this rivalry was more than just about the two fighters in the ring. It was about the history, the politics, and the egos of everyone involved. But the real question on everyone's mind was, why was Tank fighting Lamont Roach in the first place? Tank Davis had announced that 2025 would be the final year of his boxing career, and fans were expecting big fights for his last run. Legacy fights, they called them, fights that would define his career and ensure that he would be remembered as one of the greats of his era. Instead, Tank was facing Lamont Roach, a fighter who most people consider to be an underdog at best. Many fans were disappointed by this matchup, especially when they considered the alternatives. Fighters like SHOCKS Stevenson, who had been calling out Tank for years, were left on the sidelines, while Tank chose to face a fighter he had already defeated multiple times in the amateurs. Roach may be a talented fighter, but he lacked the star power needed to generate buzz for a fight of this magnitude. Tank's decision to face Roach was seen by many as a safe choice, one that didn't live up to the expectations of fans who wanted to see him face off against the best in the division. But was Roach really the weak opponent that everyone thought? The fact that Tank had already beaten Roach in the amateurs didn't mean that this fight would play out the same way. Roach had grown as a fighter, and he knew Tank better than anyone else. He had spent time in camp with Tank and had seen his rhythm and style up close. That familiarity could be an advantage for Roach when the two finally stepped into the ring. But no matter how familiar Roach was with Tank, the truth was that Tank still held the power in this fight. If Tank landed a clean shot, it was likely to end the fight in an instant. The question was whether Roach could withstand Tank's power and make it to the later rounds. Fans were divided on what to expect. Some believed that Tank would dominate, as he always had. Others thought that Roach, with his newfound confidence and determination, might surprise everyone. As the press conference incident made clear, this fight was no longer just about boxing. It was about respect, pride, and the personal stakes that each fighter brought into the ring. Tank had his reputation on the line, and Roach had his career to prove. The question now was whether Tank would rise to the challenge, or if Roach would finally dethrone the champion and become the next big name in boxing. Despite the excitement surrounding the fight, many fans felt that Tank's true legacy would be defined by his willingness to face the toughest challenges in the sport. For years, Tank had been criticized for avoiding the top fighters in his division, opting for easier fights instead. If he truly wanted to be remembered as one of the greats, he would need to step up and face the best competition available. Fighters like SHOCKS Stevenson, who had been calling out Tank for years, represented the challenges that Tank needed to take on to cement his legacy. SHOCKS Stevenson was one of the best defensive boxers in the world, and his skills could truly test Tank in ways that no one had before. The two had gone back and forth on social media, throwing shots at each other and questioning each other's toughness. Fans had been clamoring for the fight for years, but it had yet to happen. Would Tank step up before it was too late, or would he continue to take safe fights and risk being remembered as a fighter who never lived up to his potential? For Tank, the pressure was on. His career was winding down, and the clock was ticking. If he wanted to go out as a legend, he needed to face the best. Fighters like SHOCKS Stevenson were waiting for their chance to prove themselves against the champion, and the fans wanted to see that fight. But would Tank take the challenge, or would he continue to take safe fights that wouldn't define his legacy? The story of Tank Davis versus Lamont Roach is just the beginning. Whether Tank chooses to face the true challenges ahead or not, one thing is certain: the drama in the world of boxing is far from over. Fans will be watching closely, waiting to see if Tank steps up or fades into the background as another fighter who never faced the toughest competition. The choice is his to make.